someone's shared with me a portfolio of their art, and we're actually going to look through that work. And she's interested in understanding her voice and better figuring out how to approach finding her style. So we're going to look at a group of her artworks and give her some ideas and strategies to help her group the works, but also further her own research. And when I say the word research, I mean artistic investigation. I mean making your art. For me, art is an act of research. It's a way to help us come to conclusions about ideas that we have, or test out different theory hypotheses that we might have about, you know, a skill set that we have or an idea that we want to share. So this is 20-something artworks by a lovely woman I've had a chat with. I was very fortunate to be able to speak with in person, named Pam. And she's really curious about how to find her voice and like what she's, you know, what is she doing right? What could she be thinking about for her study or future practice to help her grow? So I'm not going to be able to see your comments very easily with this up, but I'll pop on and see if you guys have comments. And of course, if you guys watch this replay, I'd love for you to comment and add your own 2 cents and share. You can see here when I'm offering feedback, or at least I'm trying to say that there's no black and white answer about what's right or wrong. I'm trying to give artists a different idea or perspective to help them make choices that feel aligned with what they want with their artwork. And you can be more confident in your decisions as an artist if you have that kind of feedback, because then you have someone holding a mirror to you going, well, do you like this? Well, what about this? What about changing, you know, hair color or the direction of your light source? And then it makes you go, oh, I didn't think about that. And so then you can make sure it's a conscious decision in your art to have something the way it is. Often when we're creating, it's very intuitive and we're not really consciously thinking about the choices we make. We just kind of put our art on the paper or the canvas or whatever medium you work with. And feedback and critique is an important part of that process, because it's a point for you to get out of the making mode and get you into a reflection mode that helps you see what you've been making, what kind of messages or stories come up in your art, so that you can then continue forward with any art you make and be conscious in theme or technique or other decisions, because you've taken that time to reflect and go, oh, I like this. Oh, I don't like this. So feedback is super important. And I hope that these videos give you some confidence to ask for feedback and create boundaries too, because some people just think, oh, I get to say I like it or I don't, or if it's good or it's bad. And that's not feedback. That's them sharing their opinion. That's not critique. Critique is talking about the elements and principles of art and how you make artistic decisions to create meaning or tell story. So I'm going to first kind of scroll through all the artwork that Pam shared here so that we can get a sense of her work and her style. And then we'll kind of go into a little more detail. So the first reaction I have is I see a lot of nature connection here. Lots of flowers and animals, kind of landscapes going on. Looks like she often works in watercolor. We've got some images sideways. Sorry, guys. I think I was lazy today about orienting all the pictures before we started. But you can still get a sense of what's going on here. Still lifes, some building spaces, but even, yeah, a lot of nature. I feel a lot of connection to nature. So I'm going to scroll to the top now real quick. So the first thing I want to share is, if you look at this group of work, I already see 3 different themes. So if you were going to present your work publicly and you had this kind of portfolio, I would group the work in different categories. So one, she's got some beautiful watercolors. I love this flower in the center here. I think this is a beautiful painting. So I might group all of my flowers together as a group of artworks in a series that could tell stories. I don't know too, I think she's often working from life. And if these are, you know, flowers from where she lives, that could be part of the storytelling. Or if there's symbolic meaning to these flowers, that could be part of the story too. So I think that's one connection between the work, in addition to her use of watercolor. Then she also has all these still lifes and kind of object studies. So I think those could go well together too, including her axe and peacock feathers. I think they all have kind of this idea of study and focus. I think this blue dish is beautifully done. Another beautiful example of watercolor. And That could just be a group of works that shows study or focus. And there's a very long history of artists working with still lifes to communicate story, and also has quite a lot of symbolism involved. So that could be a whole group of works. And then lastly, she has some landscapes. I think that her animals, she could choose, she's got 2 animal portraits here. She could continue with a series of animals, or I think they could fit into the landscape works, especially since some of the landscapes for me, even though they're architectural, I still think of them as landscape, like this beautiful room with the multiple doors opening to the green. I think that's a lovely composition. So here you can see Pam has skill. She has a pretty strong use of watercolor as a medium, and she seems to, I get the impression, observe the world around her. So that's already an overarching focus of her work. Is sometimes we don't know what to paint or draw, so we just draw the things around us. But then the things that we choose to draw that are around us and in our environment, that actually starts to reflect our personality and the things we do and our choices as well as artists. And so that's something I want Pam to think about, is if she's actively studying her environment, well then, what else about your environment would you be interested to show? You know, is it really, do you really want to focus on the beauty of the landscape around you and showing a part of maybe your world that people don't understand, or don't even know about? It could be a tool. So for example, I know that Pam's from Zimbabwe, and I've never been there, but I have the impression that it's a very beautiful landscape and environment, or it can be. And so if that's part of where she's coming from, well then she could fully embrace that in the next group of artworks she studied, is how can I show the beauty of the environment that I live in? And that's a unique perspective and take to share with people. So I'm sharing this because I want you guys to see that finding voice is these little steps. Here she has all this work. For me, I think it's clear the same artist is making them because she has similar application of paint, the way that she chooses subject matter. All of these things have shared similarities. But what happens is when we actively start trying to develop our voice, we start with the things we naturally do, and then we try to push them a little further. So if she knows she loves flowers, like this green one too on the left here, I love this flower as well. The way that she manages white, in watercolor is absolutely beautiful. I love how she's using white. So that could even be a focus, is a study of flowers or objects where the white of the paper is left exposed, and the layering that comes with that. You know, focus on beauty of landscape. So you can see here, even in the discussion I'm having, you could make a technical choice, like focusing on the whites of her flowers and incorporating white into her paintings as a focal point and a way to investigate things. And that could be a tying point for a group of artworks. Or she could be looking at the beauty of the world and environment around her and really be focused on that and trying to tell the story of the beauty she sees in her everyday life. Those are completely different stories, but they still would even work together, because ultimately our voice is always changing, and we can see that evolution when we work in a series. So that's part of what I'm communicating here, is I hope you guys would look at the work you have in a group, see what kind of tying threads the different pieces have, and how you might group them together if you were going to have a show of your work. And then ask yourself, which grouping interests me the most, or which grouping gives me new ideas and gets me excited? And then say, okay, that idea is really interesting. I want to investigate it more. So I'm going to create a series of 6 to 8 artworks that further investigate this specific idea. And then jump and dig in, run down that rabbit hole, whatever you want to say. That is the work that will help you create a cohesive body of art and make your voice more consistently obvious to your audience. And that's important for a few reasons. One, if you're looking to find voice, you need to have a conscious strategy to develop your voice. It doesn't just always appear. Some people naturally seem to have a unique style, but someone tells them, oh, that's really unique, or they get feedback or reinforcement from their environment that makes them continue to make those choices. So some people don't like to hear other people's feedback because they say then it influences their decisions. But I would argue that The only work, all art that we make is influenced by the environment and the people around us. And whether or not people give us actual feedback or we imagine the feedback people might give us, all of that impacts our decisions as artists. I'm going to take a minute and just see if you guys have had any comments. Okay. So let me see if I can summarize this real quick before we wrap up today. So if you have a portfolio of work, here's what I'd suggest you do. I'd have you look at your work in thumbnails, just like I have them up on the screen here with Pam. In fact, if you have a printer, I'd print them out like this. And I'd try to have them oriented all correctly, unlike Carrie here. And I would ask myself, which ones relate? Which ones seem connected? And it can be and they can be connected in two different ways. It could be artistic decision making. So, for example, it could be compositional choices, the arrangement of the objects on the surface. It could be, as I talked about, the white being exposed in these watercolors and how the white shows through for these flowers. It could be application of paint or the specific medium you use. Those are all technical ways that your work could tie. And then you also have thematic. So, architectural environments could be a theme, or landscapes. It could be flowers. It could be animals or nature overall. So look at your work and go, okay, what kind of idea-based relationships do I see in the work that I have? And then also technical. And then ask yourself to think about those categories a little deeper and really ask yourself, what's more interesting to me? Which path could I go down next? Because once you understand that, you can even then share this work. Say if you do want it for exhibition or for purchase, you want someone to invest in your art, then that reflection helps you create storytelling to share on Instagram, to share on Facebook, to share to your email list, to tell them about the work and help you better articulate your ideas behind the work and why you make the decisions you make, which connects people to you and your art. And ultimately, for shows and for selling, people want to know the artist and they want to feel like they're part of the creative process. So sharing that journey builds trust, so that people who might not even know you in person might be willing to invest in your art online, for example. So I would love for you guys to take some action steps today. So I'm going to get off the screen here and I'm going to put me back up on. Okay, hey. So for all of you looking to find your voice today, I would love you to do that little bit of homework I just shared about printing out your artwork in thumbnails, kind of looking at it all and looking at either the technique-based decisions that you make that connect the work or the thematic. And I'd like you in the comments to share just kind of a quick blurb about the connections you're making in your art that maybe you didn't quite see before.